Yeah.
Well, welcome, guys. Very nice to see you here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place.
Oh, nice to see you. Yeah, good to see you. Very nice to see you. Wonderful. Great to connect.
We've all been in IT for a very, very long time. But I have this observation that we see this big shift that is happening. We still seem to be in an infancy stage. I mean, we still seem to be continuously being overturned by new events and new things. Of course, you've been in the information business, but healthcare is an information business. Banking is an information business. I mean, everybody is now in the information business. Yeah. We've been in IT for 20, 30 years, but for a very long time, we focused just on the capacity part. We focused on infrastructure and capacity, and when we looked at big data, we said, oh, we need a bigger database. And I think that idea of we have to move towards intelligence and analytics and understanding what is the insight behind the information, I think for me that is probably one of the most exciting things that is now happening.
There aren't that many applications that are really taking advantage of this information, at least not that I see.
I think we've transitioned from, we took the old back office paper processes, we put them on a computer. That was the last 30 years. And now we're finally getting away from that back office paper to get in front of the consumer side of it and say, okay, what's the real product?
We're hearing now about this new specialist, the data scientist. Yeah. So it's not just stats, it's someone who can really think through algorithms and integration of information and multimedia.
But if I would be 18 now, I would want to be a data scientist. I mean, that's probably...
Yeah, I'd pass.
Yeah, you would pass.
I don't want that.
John, you've spent some research on this idea of integrated systems. You've looked at how much money and time people actually waste in having to, tinker all these things together, and a lot of these guys in the data center are, very expensive plumbers to have to integrate all that. Could you just talk about some of the things that you found there?
When we asked people where they spent time, we found it was on procurement, it was on configuration of the hardware, the aspects of the data center. There was time spent on the software environment, the middleware environment, configuring all the bits, the pieces, the perhaps open source components that get pulled in. A lot of time that could be saved there. And some of these projects, we're talking days, 50 days on any one of these tasks.
Yeah, we were typically 8 to 10 weeks spent on sort of the overhead and about 2 weeks on the technology.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity here, I think, to routinize and normalize the environment, which I think is really the goal of the Expert Integrated Systems program.
Yeah.
So in our organisation, and I'm sure it's the same way other large organisations, we do thousands of IT projects a year. And we see 3 areas where we have problems, touching on what you were discussing. Engagement, how do you understand what the IT services are, how do you get hold of them? Provisioning, the time it takes to get stuff out, the cost. And then integration, how you wire all the different components together into a solution. And hopefully with PureSystems, we can start moving to a world where we can actually reduce the amount of manual labour and get much more automated best practice.
And so what I see is, you bring in some kind of converged infrastructure or bring in some appliance that works out of the box. One, I immediately gain dollars because I don't need all that labor, to put it all together. But you also gain response time because I can get it on the floor, weeks instead of months. But if you go back to, our first experience with the computers, back then we weren't doing it because it was fun to fix a broken thing. We were doing it because it was fun to make something.
Exactly.
Right. And so it is trying to remember why you got into IT. It's like getting back the thirst to make something.
Yeah, I don't think any of the developers, at least the ones I hire, really care about, just kind of doing things. I think they really are looking to build something, and if it helps them get stuff out to delight customers faster, that's what they want to do.
It's almost like those are 2 sides of the same coin. I mean, we try to get closer to the business to be more innovative, but at the same time, we want to do what we do centrally in the easiest, most cost-efficient, most economy of scale way that we can possibly imagine. And I think this idea of integrated systems is going to help on the cost and the speed part. I think the idea of the expertise is then probably going to help in that value part. I think that's an interesting combination.
But who builds that? Who builds that layer, that expert system. I mean, you know.
We are the ones who have developed that expertise. But ultimately, we don't want to just have a static process of taking an expert, creating a model, deploying it. We would like to embed these expert systems with the ability to learn patterns autonomously.
So the key piece here is the patterns.
Yeah, I think that's the
you're
key
really
word,
saying.
patterns, yeah.
Expert integrated systems is putting things together, so it's converged systems plus more.
The key to that, going further, is patterns. Yeah. The patterns describe certainly the hardware, the converged infrastructure, but also the software platform that's required for a given application scenario. With converged systems alone, you don't address that software problem. You don't address what is the environment we need for this particular application scenario. So you have to do all that work yourself. And it's a whole bunch of time-consuming discrete tasks. And every time you make a change, you have to repeat all those time-consuming discrete tasks. So it's really capturing the intelligence about the software layer working with the hardware in a pattern that's new here. And it's a very significant advance.
Okay. I think we all come from a world of IT where I think the old world of IT was complex equals powerful. And I think we're now getting into an era where simplicity is powerful.
Simplified is complex.
Simplified is complex because we all know what's behind making it simple. Because we're here and talking about the not just integrated systems and expert integrated systems as a concept, but of course IBM is bringing out PureSystems as a product. It's a big release, it's a big launch. If you look at it from an IBM point of view, where do you think is really the big difference?
I would say that first is this pre-integration. The second aspect, the built-in expertise. And I would say the third is a simplified user experience.
Same question to you, Alex, in terms of when this product comes out, how do you see the benefits for what you do in the market?
We're a software developer, but also we provide turnkey solutions to the majority of our clients. And part of the turnkey process is, of course, selecting the hardware, selecting the infrastructure, integrating, going through the whole process, and then implementing our application on top of everything else and offering a turnkey solution that the client can take over and operate. We see PureSystems helping us tremendously, shortening that process and making it considerably less expensive than it is now.
Kennedy, we talked about this idea of catalogs and catalogs of expertise, catalogs of patterns. It's called PureSystems Center. What advantage does that have for you?
At the moment, we have our products and services all over the place. PureSystems Center allows us to centralize it all, making it easier for us to advertise our wares to our customers and make it much easier for them to understand what we have, how to get access to it, and then hopefully push a button and magically it appears.
Andy, from a developer of solutions point of view, what is your expectations of PureSystems?
I think what I'm looking for is, one, I think to get the industry best practice right out of the box, because that'll speed our time to market, so I can spend time being innovative instead of spending time, just doing commodity work.
If we talk about cloud capabilities, how do you see that as a necessity to put into a product like PureSystems?
Oh, it's absolutely necessary. And also, as part of that is really the management capabilities and entitlement capabilities to allow us to really monitor, to see what's going on, how virtualization is playing out for the applications that you're building. It's critical.
Simplicity, that's the driving factor. Customer experience, but of course we know that nobody reads manuals anymore. It has to be intuitive. It has to be so simple that your chief executive and a 6-year-old can use an application. So that's one part. And the other part, we're going to be bundling patterns of intelligence and vast amounts of knowledge gathered over 30 years onto these integrated systems. And that seems to be like almost, you want pure simplicity on one side and you have tremendous complexity on the other side. How can you marry those two?
In the context of creating those expert systems, if you look at the amount of sophistication from everything from the microprocessor, to the memory, to the embedded knowledge that you're going to put in, to the amount of engineering years that you're going to have to add to make sure that it all works, as people were alluding, is tremendous, right? But ultimately, right, all that complexity has to be shielded away, right? And to give this user experience and to give this simplicity.
And coming back to the point where that means that we're going to have to change our role as technologists. I mean, I think the days are gone that we as IT went to the business and asked them, what do you want? I think we probably have to rethink that role, and we probably have to provide those things that we think are relevant to the business, and the business is then going to use that. I think that's a completely different way of working together.
Yeah, and I sort of equate it to the electric company, which a lot of people use. It's like, you don't care how complex the nuclear power plant is or the hydro dam. You don't care. You just want the standard electricity when you flip the switch.
I think we're probably getting into a situation where we have to rethink that and say the old IT probably doesn't matter, but it gives us an opportunity to rethink IT. Absolutely. And to maybe rekindle IT, and probably also give some hope for the IT people that are there that there is something new out there which is quite exciting and quite fun.
And I think that's the challenge. I think this is why PureSystems, recognising the sort of patterns that we might want to use in a standard way, will absolutely help us. And I'm very keen to see how that sort of thinking is going to change the model, because I personally believe that the IT department, especially the infrastructure ones, will become owning those services and offering them to their clients. Our job is to get that as cheaply as possible, as quickly as possible.
But I think it does come down to standardized, because you think about utilities 100 years ago, it wasn't standard. Different voltage, different amps, different wires, different providers, and eventually it matured. And I think we're kind of at that point. We're at the point where we're starting to mature. We're starting to see the patterns. Let's create the systems like PureSystems that sees those patterns and makes it more standardized.
Maybe this idea of abandoning the idea of an IT department and becoming much more embedded into business thinking, that type of fluidity might be a new type of, organizational behavior that maybe we can initiate as IT.
So I see our own company and all of our competitors and the industry building the same stuff differently, time and time again. And I see it as such waste. And I have a dream where the world starts using the same stuff the same way, and see it as just a commodity. Then we can focus on the really important things in life that we can, for business and mankind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I really want to thank you guys very much for the discussion. I think we had a very good roundtable. Really enjoyed the discussion, and hope we continue this over drinks. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thanks very much.